Hey, it's Bill Whittle here again at CPAC 2010, and I'm here with a very interesting gentleman who's the subject of a bit of a controversy lately. I'm here with Stewart Rhodes. Stewart is a spokesman for Oath Keepers, and Oath Keepers is a group of people, organization of people, who have sworn an oath to the Constitution of the United States, either as a former military man or as a firefighter, police officer, that kind of thing.
Current serving military, police, firefighters, or veterans of those services. That's correct.
So you are dealing with a group of people that some people have called the sheepdogs. You're the people that take care of and protect the body of people that make up the American citizenry.
The guardians of the people and the republic.
Okay, so people who are given that kind of authority swear an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States.
That's correct.
And you have formed this organization, and you have a list of oaths, a list of orders that you will not obey.
That's right.
Some of them are: we will not obey orders to impose martial law, we will not obey orders to detain American citizens as unlawful enemy combatants, all of these anti-tyrannical type of things.
This top one.
We will not obey orders to disarm the American people.
Right.
Now, some people are trying to portray this as a radical, dangerous, right-wing nut job kind of thing. But I look at these orders and I think back to the founders and those of us who study the founding of the Constitution in the United States and our foundational principles. I get the feeling the founders would look at this list and they would just simply go, well, duh.
Right, exactly.
Duh. Of course not.
Yeah, and they had their own list of shall nots also. It was called the Bill of Rights,
right,
which was a reflection of their history of abuse of government, and they intended to make sure it didn't happen again. All we're really doing is saying, yes, we're reaffirming the principles in the Bill of Rights, and that these are the lines that should not be crossed, and these are what governments have done throughout history, and we've added on some examples from the 20th century, such as the internment of the Japanese Americans, which happened right here, and gun confiscation during Katrina, which happened very recently. So I don't know why that's so conspiratorial.
We will not obey any order to blockade American cities, thus turning them into giant concentration camps. Now, people on the left are trying to portray this as sort of a call to militia action in the beginning of a revolution and so on, but there's nothing proactive in this list. This is a list of things that you will not do. This is not a list of things that you're going to go and do.
It's very Gandhi-like, so we're just not going to do this.
Not going
Civil
to do
disobedience. And actually, it's also the obligation that every police officer and military personnel should already know. It's established law in the military law that they must disobey an unlawful order. Remember back during the Nuremberg trials, right?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Following orders is not an excuse.
Right, precisely.
That's right.
It didn't work for Lieutenant Calley either.
It did not. And the great pride of the American military is that each individual soldier, from the top commanding major general down to the lowest buck private, is not obligated to follow an order that is an illegal order, or is that an order?
Right.
Okay.
And in fact, he's obligated to disobey it. He could be tried and convicted if he follows an order that's unlawful.
So now let's get down to the brass tacks, Stewart. It seems to me that these are fairly obvious things, and you would think that most soldiers would say, well, of course I'm not going to confiscate guns from the American people. Of course I'm not going to put American people in detention camps. What is it about the current political climate that got you guys to the point where you feel you have to form an organization and make it clear? Because this obviously is, this list of orders is not for your internal use. This is to say to the government, don't get any funny ideas, because we're just not going to do this. Is that a fair statement?
It's also an education tool. I can't take for granted that police and military understand the Constitution and understand the importance of their oath. They might not know, and quite a few of them don't, that the oath is actually required in the Constitution itself in Article 6. It's a mandate from the founders that the oath and the allegiance is to the people and to their Constitution, not to a person or to an office like the King of England, as it was traditionally. Right. The founders broke that tradition of being vowed to obey a person, and instead they said, hey, the supreme law of the land here is not the king, not a person, not the president, it's the Constitution itself. And now why did we do this? Well, we looked at the very recent history of Katrina. There you had house-to-house disarmament of average American citizens who were not looters. They were just simply people trying to maintain their own safety in their own homes or while evacuating. And they were disarmed. And you also had confinement in the Superdome. People were put in there, as was seen on Fox News, Shepard Smith talking about it on Fox News. They were not allowed to cross out, not allowed to cross the bridge he was standing on. There was a blockade put in place. They were kept inside. And so you had two examples right there in recent history.
So it probably bears illuminating that while many people on the progressive left want to paint you as a bunch of right-wing screaming nutcases, this is in a response to something that happened under the administration of George W. Bush. This is not about an anti-Obama movement. It's not an anti-Democratic Party movement. It is we understand what the limits on the federal power should be, and sometimes the federal government apparently doesn't, and therefore we have this list of orders that we're not going to obey if they should be issued to us.
Exactly. And in fact, an article I wrote for SWAT Magazine 2 years ago talked about the importance of the oath. This is long before we knew who was going to be president in this last election. And one of the things that really got me during the Bush administration years was the claimed power of the president to detain even an American citizen as though they were a foreign combatant in Iraq or Afghanistan. The claim was he could detain you or I as an enemy combatant without due process at all. No indictment, no jury trial. I think it's very dangerous.
Yes, and you're not taking the reverse position. You're not saying that American rights should be granted to illegal combatants who are actually illegal foreign national combatants.
Sure, but the American, there is a line of separation between us and them.
Categorically.
Citizens, absolutely. I mean, Scalia said this in the Hamdi dissent. You look at the Hamdi case, in Scalia's dissent, he is spot on. He says, with an American, you can do that with a foreign enemy. With an American citizen, you must try them for treason. That's what you do with a person who makes war on their own nation. And so I saw that under the Bush administration as a very dangerous trend. But now all those powers that were put in place and all these claims of authority that were aimed at radical Islamic terrorism are now being swung inward.
Yeah, that's
Who
right.
are the people that are being considered to be potential terrorists nowadays by DHS?
Yeah, former military people, militia
Ron Paul
groups,
supporters,
yeah, all that,
Chuck Baldwin supporters,
Absolutely.
all that, yeah.
So I have two quick
Tea
questions.
partiers too,
there
by
you
the
go.
way.
I know. Two quick questions for you.
Sure.
Number one, it's been a remarkable year in American politics, to say the least. We have seen the federal government nationalize entire industries, things that many of us who have been students of America simply would not imagine we'd ever live to see, let alone see in a year.
Right, exactly.
Do you find that that is driving your membership, or at least interest in your organization, the events of this last year with this new administration and their strong belief in a very powerful federal government?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also the part of the cycle of politics. When it was Bush doing it, the Democrats, liberals were quoting Benjamin Franklin and quoting the Constitution and calling him unconstitutional. Now that it's flipped, now you have more conservatives waking up and going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that these powers are in the hands of the president. But also Obama has reinforced those fears by calling returning veterans potential terrorist threats and by nationalizing GM and doing these huge bailouts for the banks and trying to nationalize healthcare. I mean, he's acting as though he is doing a scorched earth socialist program as fast as he possibly can.
And what do you think the objective is of those people who are trying to portray Oath Keepers as a right-wing paramilitary revolutionary movement that's calling for armed insurrection against the lawful governments of the United States?
Well,
what do you think they're trying to achieve?
Well, I think they feel threatened. They feel their agenda is threatened by us reminding Americans of the core bedrock we all have, which is the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. If we all come together and stand on that common ground and defend that common ground, they cannot transform America. But if they can divide and conquer us and marginalize us and make us afraid to talk about our own heritage and about the very plain fact that the Constitution mandates that oath and what that means, they don't want the veterans, for example, to wake up and realize that to keep my oath as a veteran, I must only support constitutionalists for office. If I support an oath breaker, I am breaking my oath. That's a message that's a threat to their political goals. So, I mean, what else could they be afraid of? Wouldn't they want someone to keep fidelity to their promises?
You would think
to
so.
follow the supreme law of the land?
The oath is to the Constitution. It's not to a party. It's not to an individual.
Right.
And I am extremely wary of invoking Godwin's law on anything, but I will tell you this as a student of history. The moment that Nazi Germany became Nazi Germany, the moment that Adolf Hitler gained the power to do what he did, was the moment that he determined that Army, Air Force, and Navy officers in the German population had to suddenly take an oath to him personally.
That's right.
That oath went from being an oath to the German people to an oath to him personally. That's what gave him the power to achieve everything else.
Right.
And I think that's really what all of us who learn the lessons, or at least try to learn the lessons of history, are afraid of. We just simply are aware that this has happened in the past. We're not saying it's happening now, but we're saying we're keeping our eyes on it.
Exactly, and the founders understood that, and that's why they had experienced history, they were students of history, and that's why they made sure the oath was to the Constitution itself, not to an office, not to a man.
If people are interested in Oath Keepers, Stuart, where can they go?
You can go to oathkeepers.org, and we have testimonials there from veterans and current serving who send in what their oath means to them. They can read those. Those are very stirring. And they can also submit their own testimonial. And we have 50 state forums that can go join and participate in anything Oath Keepers does.
Well, for the other 10,000 assorted right-wing revolutionary nut jobs here at CPAC 2010, I'm Bill Whittle.